Hello everyone, and welcome to the first panel, which is called Finno-Ugric Peoples and Languages Today, Baltic-Finnic Focus. In this discussion, we will reflect on the current situation of our peoples and languages and the strengths and weaknesses of the Finno-Ugric movement and the changes needed for a sustainable future of our cultures. I'm joined by multiple panelists here who represent a wide range of experiences and backgrounds. So first I would like to introduce Hipp Saar, or Saare Hipp. She's of Võro background. She's a member of the Võro Council of Elders and works on many preservative and innovative projects. For example, the translation of Minecraft into Võro and doing the first Võro podcast, Poodiman. And then we have Sofia, Johanna, Rova. She's of Sámi Tornedalian background. She's not yet a big name in the Finno-Ugric movement, and maybe that's actually a plus for today. And then we have Madis Arukask. He's an Estonian folklorist and ethnologist with long-standing work among the Vepsians. And currently he also serves as head of board in the Finno-Ugric institution. Then Ekaterina Kuznetsova, who is Votic, representing one of the most critically endangered Finno-Ugric peoples. She's also our host, the head of Ingeri Maja, and the driving force of this year's Finno-Ugric Capital of Culture. And then online, do we have Tuomo Kondie? Yes, hello. So we have Tuomo Kondie. He's a Karelian sociolinguist and language activist from Finland. He has been a member of state-appointed Karelian language expert group and is currently doing his PhD in the role of identity and community building for Karelian language revitalization. And maybe I should also introduce myself. I am Britt-Kathleen and I am the head of the NGO Hõimõlõimed, which aims to bring together people who are interested in all things Finno-Ugric in Estonia. So let's talk about languages today. With the present situation, where do our languages and identity stand today? And I would like each of you to take a moment to reflect on what gives you the most hope, what concerns you most about the future of your language and culture. So the first question is your language still alive and kicking or surviving only on life support? And let's start with Hipp.
So, I think Võro language is alive. It is very much alive. There are many people that are speaking it as their mother tongue and every day to other people, at their home, to their cats and dogs. But there is maybe not so bright future ahead if we talk about talking to children, if we talk about using it in new situations, then the situation is not that good. There are like very few families that actively speak Võro to their children, and also if we look at the local governments or some cultural work, then I think the language and this like specific thing about our region is not appreciated enough, and I don't know what will come in the future.
Thank you. Maybe let's go to the more extreme case now. Katja, could you give us an explanation of what's going on with Votic?
Oh, it's very complicated with our language because 20 years ago we had a hope that we will have a living language because we had the place where together people lived and talked. Old people, sure, but they talked with their sons, daughters, and grandsons. It was the village Luca in Ust-Luga, and surrounded Jõgapere and a few villages. Only one spot with three villages. And we had a lot of work, and many thanks to Estonian linguists who helped to make books and make learning of language in summer camps, and as Heinki Henso and others. And we had like a cultural revival for this time. And hope was raised that we can do it. But afterwards it was like situation went in bad way. And now, for now, I can say that we mainly live in different places. We can't even come now, some people, to these places where compact Votic nation live. And for now, we can only opportunity in internet to learn language and talk in this language. So it's when we had these studies in villages, we had children who started to learn, talk language, and now I don't want even I don't know even where they are, these children. So we were just spread in Russian side, and some of persons in Estonian and Finnish side. And for now, I can say that I know only 2 families who speak Votic inside the family. But I see that if we can have good communication, because in our this internet world, then we have new opportunities, and I think maybe we can do through this. And I want to say that it's very sad that we have so bad connection now with Russian side, and it's very hurts us because we live in this border of between Estonian and Russia, and we can't even connect by mail sometimes because people afraid of connection to other foreign countries. And the worst thing that now even our Finno-Ugric movements marked as extremistic. And after this, many people who I connected, they just make silence now. Mm-hmm. So we need to think how we can work in this situation that we have.
Sounds very grim. Maybe, Sofia, could you explain to the viewers, the listeners, your language background, or what exactly does Sámi and Tornedalian mean?
Well, I don't speak the languages because it wasn't passed down to me, which I feel a sense of shame and a sense of like longing for. As for this like current status, the problem is passing it down to the younger generations. A lot of people, they simply talk Swedish with their children because they obviously there's not really any majority Finnish or Sami-speaking areas left in Sweden because of how people have moved. Formerly Finnish-speaking cities like Pajala have slowly over time become more Swedish-speaking. And with, like, obviously if you want a future, you have to go to university and study, and that's all done in Swedish, even though you can get childhood education in both Sami and Meänkieli. So I'd say that the main issue is the parents not seeing that the language has a future and therefore deciding not to speak it with their children.
Thank you. Tuomo, could you tell us about the state of Karelian languages?
Yeah, absolutely. So Karelian is very much a living language. We are a very much so a cross-border community, like our Votic friends. So that personally, I am from the Finnish side of Karelians, but most Karelian speakers live in the Russian Federation. Nowadays, we have quite a lot of supporting structures and good things going on for Karelians. We have certain institutions that are quite helpful. And this is a somewhat special circumstance in the sense that in a lot of cases, when you talk about minority languages, the state institutions serve quite often more as an oppressive force for minority languages. And we do still, of course, have issues regarding that. For example, that Karelian is not taught in any schools around the country. But we have seen very good development in that regard. For example, in my own university, the University of Eastern Finland, we have had the teaching of Karelian language and culture for 15 years now, and that's starting to create a whole new kind of generations of Karelian linguistic and cultural experts. One thing that has been really interesting to see, and is of course a very good force for the language itself, is that we have seen a very strong surge of Karelian youth movement in the last 10 years or so, that specifically young people have taken upon themselves to revitalize Karelian language and culture, and they are creating a lot of spaces specifically for young people. And this is, of course, a good thing for any kind of minority community, because often when the problem is that the transmission of the language and culture has been severed at some point, then the younger generations are in a key role. So we are seeing a lot of good things about that. And a lot of Finnish old and really prestigious cultural institutions, such as the National Museum of Finland and a lot of the really old cultural organizations that have played previously a vital part in repressing Karelian language and culture, have now kind of started to re-examine their history and are actively working with the Karelian community to promote information and knowledge about Karelian. So we have a lot of good things going on. Then, of course, we do now have a lot of issues with the current political situation with Russia, because we are very much a cross-border community, and previously that has been a great strength for the Karelian people as a whole. But now, of course, the border is closed and any kind of formal collaboration has been made impossible, and that, of course, also affects a lot of the informal collaboration as well. Just as with the Votic people, we have a lot of difficulties communicating even by mail because of fears that our community members would be labeled, or their close family members would be labeled as extremists and then being targeted by some kind of repressive actions. So that has made things rather difficult. And then there is also the side that still Karelian people are quite poorly known in Finland in general. And oftentimes, and especially historically, Karelians have been seen as kind of Russified Finns, which is not, of course, not true. But when attitudes are becoming more hostile towards Russian people and Russian culture, then that also affects the attitudes toward Karelians, because Karelians are often perceived as being kind of Russian in a sense. So then that has made the kind of attitude, the kind of general atmosphere in Finland slightly more hostile towards Karelians, and that also instills fear in people. But we do have the good thing going for us that politically, when you talk about the political parties and different political forces, there's not a single party that would kind of officially have a very hostile stance towards Karelian revitalization. And then that has meant that, for example, in the aforementioned expert group, the state-appointed expert group on Karelian language and culture, we managed to write a very good and very detailed revitalization plan that has now been published as an official publication of the Ministry of Culture and Education in Finland, which means that we now have a policy paper in place that recommends very good actions, such as the legal status for Karelian and Karelian language nests and Karelian teaching in schools and all of that. Of course, none of those are being implemented yet, but the revitalization program was only published earlier this year. So we are hoping that in 2 years, when we have the next parliamentary elections, that the next government in Finland will take some of these actions, because now it's a state-approved policy paper, and then start to put them in implementation. So in short, we have our difficulties, but all in all, it's surprisingly a good situation for a Finno-Ugric minority language that Karelian has.
That's great to hear. Madis, your comments?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it depends on from what side we look at this issue. Theoretically and from the scientific point of view, Finnic languages are in perfect situation. They are documented very well. They are studied very well. The study goes on. It's excellent point or state for whatever revitalization, etc., etc. Another question is, are those languages spoken in real? Do they have whatever social function in real life? So, and from that point, Finnic languages mostly are doing not bad at all. Sorry, not good at all. They are doing very badly. So my own experience from the Websian field is that in daily life in Websian communicate only the elderly generation in remote villages in northwest Russia. There goes a huge gap, and then maybe some people or some group of activists or those who have studied Websian language in Petrozavodsk already mostly as a second language. So and those two spheres are very different. You imagine oral world, elderly people, first language, and then something very different, written language, written use, second language. So that is quite typical for all smaller Finnic languages. So, but yeah, so everything is possible for future. Let's say, as we see what happens now in let's say in Latvia with Livonians. Maybe I'm wrong, but practically, as far as I know, there is no Livonian speaker as a first language left. But the interest and the rise of interest and language knowledge is slowly but permanently rising in Latvia, and that is something promising or some good example. I hope the Karelians will do or are doing in the same line. But if you look back into the history, we see that since 19th century, when smaller Finnic languages were, I don't know how to say it, rediscovered or discovered for a scientific field, all the time, from the very beginning, be it Votians, be it Websians, whoever, the talk, maybe not only Karelians in the 19th century, the talk has been that those languages are dying out very soon. It takes only 10 of years and everything has gone, but surprisingly it has not happened.
So there is hope. Now, my next question is indirectly related to the to languages, but I would like to know how useful you find the Finno-Ugric movement as a whole. Has it proven to be useful, or are there any negatives to it, especially now politically, since Finno-Ugria in Estonia has been deemed also extremist? Or is it maybe possible that it's just a nostalgic remnant of the past, especially with younger generations living in Europe. They might not even have the same lingua franca as the people before us did, which was Russian. Anyone can answer?
I think there needs to be bigger outreach towards Scandinavia, because from what I feel is that people up here feel kind of like they're doing their own thing and not really related to the wider Finno-Ugric movement. And I think that especially for Sámi, because of the history and like the isolation and the state oppression, that Sámi tend to keep much more to themselves than to interact with like the wider Finno-Ugric community. And I think that's something that needs to change.
Do you feel that the people already in the Finno-Ugric movement should also push for it? Or maybe is it that Sámis need to...
I think it has to be on both sides.
Both sides, okay. So, what about you, Hipp?
Well, if you talk about the nostalgic things, then this is pretty much true for Võro community and maybe also Seto community, that I have, growing up, I had this like big idea that all the activists, all the writers and Võro activists that are around me, they are very much within this Finno-Ugric scene and know things and have like great tales about like during 90s or 80s how they met up with people and found their identity through it. But growing up, I haven't had any real connection with this movement very much. But it has always been an interest, but very, as a Võro person, I have not found my place really in it. We are not represented or invited in many events, or not maybe considered that big of a member or that exotic member to introduce, and maybe so it now it hasn't given very much support, but my hope is that it will maybe get better, and new people are coming in that have those interests, and it would be very nice to connect these fields.
Thank you. Madis, you have been in this movement for a while, right? What do you think about this? Is it still worthwhile?
Sure. There was a question about nostalgia. I think nostalgia is an important part of this, of course, but it's not the only factor. But yeah, I am surely. What else can we do? We should keep things moving, and very important. We should have different opinions on things. That's normal. If you had only one opinion on the issue, then nothing happens soon. We should have different opinions on this. It keeps us going. I mean, all the Finno-Ugric society, community, whatever we call it. But the important thing is that we must be able to discuss things in normal way. That's how the normal society works, how the democracy works. To have different opinions, but to be able to come together and talk about things as we do now.
What about Tuomo? Would you say that Karelians are part of the Finno-Ugric movement? Have you felt the presence of the Finno-Ugric movement, or has it helped Karelians in any way?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm invited here as a Karelian person, so I'm a very living example that we are indeed part of this movement. But I do find it to be worthwhile, of course, now that we are. I think that the point about making a larger outreach is a very good one, but these are also very typical signs of a living, working political movement, that you also have this kind of internal discussion about what should we improve on and what should we do more. So these are all, in my mind, signs of a living, real political movement. But I think it does have a lot of value, and it is valuable for Karelians as well. And for example, I have personally in my own social media been distributing information about this, and I have this event, and I have gotten a lot of messages from specifically young Karelians that they are extremely interested in these kind of things. That's of course a good sign. But I think it has that's a very good point, that it needs to be a space where people have different opinions, because that's, you know, a movement or a space where you can only have one opinion is not really any kind of a living political movement. There needs to be living discussion all the time. But that's one, I feel like that's one of the most important parts of the Finno-Ugric movement, because it is often quite a lonely work as a minority people. When you are trying to revitalize your language and your culture, you are very alone with those experiences. So it does matter quite a lot that you can hear from other peoples who are kinds of situations, but have found different kind of practices, for example. So that is very valuable. And simply also the fact that we can come here and discuss these things in a space where everybody understands how serious these things are is also a very valuable thing, because often there is a certain sense of belittlement when it comes to minority languages and culture, that when you talk about these things in a political sense, from the majority people, they are quite often seen as something more akin to a hobby. Like it's, you know, it's often the majority people don't really see that these are a matter of life and death, and these are fights for our very existence, but it is seen as rather some kind of a small cultural hobby that you're doing. So I feel like one of the very important aspects of the Finno-Ugric movements is that we can come together and discuss these things, and we can discuss these in a serious manner, where things are given their proper weight and everybody understands how big these things really are.
Thank you. And Katja, I feel like you have received a lot and gotten a lot of help through the Finno-Ugric movement. Would you agree?
Yeah, actually, our Votic movement, our thoughts about revival of language and our culture, not so old. It's about 25 years. So when we started work, we felt very good support from Finno-Ugric movement, and other Finno-Ugric people was like example how we can work. So for us, very important to see what other people have done, and that we can choose a strategy for our movement. Because when Madis said about leaves, I thought, oh, okay, leaves, they hadn't living language, but now they have so many work they did, and it's amazing. And that make me like not to be depressed about what happened around. And I see that interest from the people in Narva and Võro, very strong interest from people with Votic, Ingeri roots. Because we have opportunity in Ingeri Maja to start this work that we did already in Russian side. And I think we also got this like experience that we had before. It's very sad that we hadn't very good very good not now it was very big work, but the situation now it's not good. And I think that if we could make the same work in here, it would be much more interesting for people, because in here people, they don't afraid. And we can speak here, we can speak freely. And it's very, very good opportunity, because when we speak now in Finno-Ugric, our friends from Russia, we can't speak freely. And when we always had to think about what we can say, what we can't say, it's not a good way to work. And I want to say that it's very good that we in here, because we can look at each other, that we are living people who making something. When I was a child, what I want to say, I lived in Soviet Union. And every time it was when was something folk festival, it's only dancing, singing, and hello and bye. And every time when I feel that what we do starting to make like this, it's not right. So Finno-Ugric movement helped us a lot, but now I want that something that we can do more practically. So we can. I expect that I can see practical projects and hear from people how they actually worked to revive their language and culture.
Thank you. I would like to go back to the point that Sofia mentioned. It's about language and identity and how these two work together. My question is it possible to separate identity and ability to converse in the language in the eyes of the community? So do Finno-Ugric communities treat those who don't speak the language differently from those who do? Or have you yourself ever felt any guilt and lack of sense of belonging, or maybe an identity crisis due to your inability to not fully converse in the language of the community? And I think maybe Sofia would be the best to answer first.
Yes. So at least for Sámi, the majority of people don't speak the language anymore, which means that everyone I've spoken to has accepted me without question, which is obviously nice, but I still feel this self-doubt, of course, which I think will be there until the day I learn the language. And as for the Tornedalian, I feel like the sense of identity there isn't as strong as Sámi, due to both like wider assimilation into the Swedish community and closer proximity with people on the Finnish side. So, but as well there, the language, as I mentioned, is being forgotten by people not teaching it to their children. But Tornedalian, I feel, is a much more linguistically linked ethnicity rather than Sámi, where the languages seem to take more of like a step back, where the culture is more important for self-identity.
Hipp, were you born into a Võro-speaking family, or did you have to learn Võro at some point?
Yes, I was born into a Võro-speaking family. My parents speak Võro to each other every day, but also in their childhood, their parents didn't, but their grandparents did. So my parents talk to each other and sometimes to me, but pretty much I had two languages growing up, Estonian and Võro. And there are like very few, like maybe only like two families that speak only in Võro. So it is very difficult situation, because Võro language is like the biggest part of our identity, and it is like a little bit of a conflict between people that choose to speak Estonian in their homes or learn it after, and that there are not many opportunities to learn it if you don't have it from home. I can't say that it's almost impossible, but very few options. Sometimes in schools it's provided, but it's more like an insight to this language, not like actually learning the language. And afterwards in university, it takes a lot of work to really master it. But there are more and more young people that say that they haven't got it from their homes, and they are even a little bit angry or disappointed with their parents or grandparents that they are not speaking it. But of course, there's many factors regarding it, all their traumas from their school when they were disregarded for their language, their Võro language, and there are still many people that are afraid to speak it in a public situation or don't think it's appropriate. I feel that Võro people have made some attempts to make Võro identity also go past the language, like to find maybe not like sometimes I think like researching specifically what else is there beside the language, and there are things, but like smoke sauna tradition, those things that have been like discovered and also made specifically more Võro thing.
Tuomo, if I'm correct, you were 16 when you learned that your grandfather's mother tongue was actually Karelian, not Finnish. So how did you feel about that? Did you get the sense of belonging immediately, or did it come gradually, or did you feel like you need to prove yourself first before being accepted as a Karelian?
Yeah, that is correct. I was 16 when I learned that my grandfather's first language was Karelian, because for a long time a lot of Karelian people didn't realize that Karelian is a separate language, because officially that was the kind of official state narrative that Karelians are speaking this bastardized version of Finnish, and that it's dirty and disgusting and harmful and needs to be kind of rooted out. And of course, when you grow up in like with your own family history, then that is the only reality that you know. So you don't really realize that certain things are not kind of normal, because those are the things that happen to your family. So for example, I didn't know that my grandfather's family had changed their last name because they were told by a school teacher that they have a dirty Russian name and it needs to be changed. So now when you say, like, when you grow up hearing those kind of stories, you think that like, oh, it's normal. Everybody's family had some kind of disgusting names that they needed to get rid of. And then only as an adult, I started to realize that that's actually a horrible thing to say to another human being, that your name is so disgusting that it needs to be changed. But you don't have that perspective when that's the only reality that you have grown with. So, for example, my father grew up hearing a lot of Karelian at home, but he only thought it as a kind of dialect and not its own language. So when I realized that that Karelian is a language that exists, and it's the language that was spoken in my family, and that many of these other experiences that I knew about were not actually commonplace, but quite radical in a sense, it did launch quite a strong identity crisis. I did feel like I need to kind of prove myself, or I was wondering that what am I even, because my family comes from Karelian, we have that background, but I don't speak Karelian, so am I Finnish, am I Karelian? I didn't know. So I started to search more and more information, and that's kind of what led me to this point. Now Karelian linguistics and revitalization is my profession, and it all started as a kind of teenage identity crisis that led me down this path. So yeah, I did feel like I had to prove myself, and I did start to study Karelian. At the time, the resources were very, very meager, and it was really difficult to find them. But through my father's connections, I met some other Karelian revitalizationists, and I started to find the community more and those resources more. And then when I went to university, I chose the University of Eastern Finland specifically because you could learn Karelian language and culture there. So yeah, of course, identity and language are very strongly connected. Of course, we also within the Karelian community have the same understanding that, you know, the reality is that we have been quite heavily assimilated, so we can't really blame individuals for being results of kind of assimilationist practices that have lasted for about 200 years. So people are very much accepted into the community, even if they don't speak the language, but the language is quite important part of it. And there is a certain sense of prestige that comes with it, but people are quite accepting that it's a learning process, that when you start to learn Karelian, it's not easy, and it's not something that happens immediately. And of course, it does often come with quite a lot of strong emotions, like a sense of shame and self-doubt, that people are wondering if they can if they're allowed to learn the language, and if they are kind of Karelian enough. So yeah, understanding that connection between language and identity is something that I feel is very central to any kind of revitalization process, because it is, from the point of view of an individual, kind of a very, very harsh experience, in a sense that you identify very strongly with language that you are not able to speak. So there is a kind of big difference in the personal experience between the ideal and the reality, and bridging that gap is often not easy. So yeah.
Thank you. Madis, when you've done field work amongst the Vepsians, did you speak Russian or Vepsian to them? Or both?
I do and try speak Vepsian, of course, because the information I'm interested in it sounds differently in different languages. I'm a folklorist. Yeah, but especially at the very beginning, local people started to speak to me firstly in Russian, because it was a language what is spoken with people abroad, and it was not normal that somebody comes from outside and speaks Vepsian, you know. And but yeah, the general question about language and identity, especially here in Estonia, we have used to think that that those things are really much connected. Of course, that's right. But yeah, all this Finno-Ugric movement or Finno-Ugric idea is, as you all know, is based on this language kinship idea, and we may say that Finno-Ugric issue is it is about language, and that's it. But and I agree that, let's say, in Võro case, the language is very important identity marker. But what I mean is that, especially today in the modern or postmodern world, whatever we call it, beside the language use, study of language, there are many other things about identity. I think that the main thing is that we must ask right questions. We must ask why we don't have I mean, as a representative of some small nation, why we don't have our history book, or who has made our history, or questions like that. And these are those real identity triggers, because today we are not anymore monolingual anyway. We speak different languages. I had one very good idea, but I forgot right now. Yep.
I would also like to ask, when you went to your field works, or when the informants first found out that you actually do have some knowledge about Vepsä, how did they feel about it? What was their attitude towards you as an outsider?
Tricky. Of course, it was positive that somebody, I'm not young anymore, but anyway, for them, somebody from younger generation is talking their language, or trying to do this, or is able to communicate in this. But from other side, I remained someone abroad anyway, because I didn't come from Russia. I do not smell like like local people, so that makes difference. But yeah, they used that there is some guy and some other people with him who are talking Vepsä language, and of course positively surprised that someone is interested in this.
And Katja, how do you feel about this? Did you grow up with Votic language, or did you have to learn it later in life?
No, I remember my grandma, who spoke a bit, mainly it's lullabies and like this. And afterwards, it was a long time when there was no possibility to learn language or know something about it. Because when we started work in 2001, we hadn't nothing. No books, no even written language, no alphabet, nothing. And in every encyclopedia or book were that Votic people extinct, only 2 old women survived. So first we started not with language actually, but we started by saying that we are here. We started to make exhibitions with personalities, with the Votic villages, and I remember very good that when we came to in St. Petersburg to Finnish Institute, we said we want to make Votic photo exhibition in here, and the leader of the institute said, "Oh, Votians." But there are not many Votians at all. They extinct. And I said, we are came. We are Votians. We are came. We want to make this exhibition to show us. And it was for a few years that we actually declare that Votian people still alive. And not only 2 old women, but people of my age and our children, they all here. So we only after this we started to work with serious work with language, because first language courses was at my home in St. Petersburg with 5 people who translated Votic tales that was collected by Paul Arista, and first book was like Votic tales in Votic and Russian. And after this, started work with language. So for Votic people, I don't think it's a very important language, because mainly people speak as mother tongue Russian language. I know in Estonian that some Votians in Estonia have Estonian language like his own first tongue, but self-identity for us, it's not this. Because, you know, Votic people are so small that even sometimes people ask, when you say, I'm Votians, so what's this? And some Votic people in Russia, for a long time, they said Izhorians instead of Votians, because Izhorians were more, people knew about this. And once I had a call from government in Russia, from Leningrad Oblast, and they said, we want to make Izhorian community, but you, Webs, can come in it. And also in our Votic Museum in Luca, we had a diploma for revival web sculpture. So for us, it's like we need to show that we are people different from other, these Finno-Ugric people who knew well. And language is only the part of this. Because we have differences in like costumes and national character, and even like how we make at home, the space at home. So I feel like this.
All right. And so I think that's it. It's almost 11 o'clock, so thank you all for your wonderful insights. I've learned a lot. I hope that the listeners have done so as well. Thank you for sharing your stories and for being open and honest in this open forum. Thank you.